Hey, hey everyone. Good intro so far. This is Robert Jackson, and thank you for tuning in to the podcast. On my end, it is raining and thunderstorms and all that good jazz, which we do need in Southern California. So I figured, why not just kill some time than to just do an episode? Because yeah, just to keep the ball rolling, today we have Francesca Calo joining us on my screen here. So thank you for joining me today. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to have some fun here. So, would you like to share, um, just your little brief introduction, the bio, what you've been working on, what you've done, anything that comes to mind? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm Francesca Calo. I'm an actor and ADR director for lots of different projects, anime, video games. I've worked on Pokemon. I've worked on, oh my God, now of course I'm blanking. Uh, uh, I play Stella Lucia in Gundam Seed Destiny. I play Lei in season 3 of Kingdom anime. In terms of directing, I was a co-director for the Kingdom anime that recently came out, and a new project called New Gods Young Jim, which is coming out in theaters January 20th. And I've done some video games like Seven Nights 2. I played Chen Chun. I was in Wasteland 3 as Celine Crow. And yeah, more stuff coming up too. I think that about covers it.
Nice. So, yeah, let's get right to it. The first question is, since you were born and raised in New York City, how would you describe your childhood was like growing up in the Big Apple?
I loved it. It's the only thing I've known, obviously. When I was a kid, I wasn't like intimidated by the city, which I think a lot of people can be intimidated by. It can be daunting for people who are coming in because there's so much happening all the time. But it was also great because you know, my weekends would be spent in like the movie theaters or going to Broadway shows. My birthdays, like every year, my parents are also in the industry, so I was like surrounded by the film industry all the time. Um, so for my birthdays, we would always go to like a Broadway show, and I was always immersed in that culture. Or you would in school they would take us to trips to like a natural history museum or the Met here, and you would see all the art and stuff. So it's very exciting. I think being in the city is great for those who like it. You always are like hustling and bustling, but there's also like a camaraderie that comes with being in that city that's amazing as well.
Yeah, right on. So, let me see. Um, since I usually ask this for people who are born in like New York and whatnot, but you've already kind of answered, like going to shows or going to Broadway and stuff. What were some of the shows that kind of left an impression or like a big impact on you as a person,
Oh my
and
gosh.
anything that drove you into like, hey, you know what? Maybe I could give performing a shot. I want to be an actress.
Yeah, yeah.
That's going to be my journey I'm set for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So I mean, a big memory of mine was when we saw The Lion King, when it kind of just came out. And like that was, I think, just innovative in terms of like the costumes. And like I had never seen, I mean, I loved The Lion King when I was a kid. But I had never seen a production like, for example, utilize the audience where they would have like animals walking down the aisles of the audience. um and the costumes were amazing. My very first one was Beauty and the Beast, and I actually ran out of the theater because I was kind of scared by like the transformation of the beast. um Recently, one show that has like really inspired me was Hades Town, which is just a beautifully done show all around. The music, but I was never like I really like Shakespeare, and those kind of things. So seeing like free Shakespeare in the Park at the public theater was always a highlight of the summer because I was never like, I want to be in musical theater. I was more classical theater, like Shakespeare and um, the classics, like you were to see and all that. So I would say the ones that had the most impact were probably like Shakespeare in the Park in terms of career and wanting to get into that, and realizing that I could get into that. Yeah.
Nice. So it was like a lot of these shows that you talked about, and it's like, it just kind of moved you in a way that not a lot of other like mediums really did. So that's kind of where I think that's kind of like, when the whole like acting bug, that's just kind of where it bit you, and then it just never let go for you.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like I said, I was raised in the industry, so I was also on like film sets and stuff a lot when I was a kid. So I would see like the behind the scenes, and it was like very cool to me to see all these things. And I actually got into acting because my father, who was a director, writer, producer, he also took acting classes just for his career. And he noticed that I was like a very shy kid growing up, that he wanted to break me of it. So he put me into acting classes because it forces you to be out of your body and stuff. And so that's when I kind of really fell in love with it and like continued on from there. But yeah, all going to the theater, going to these film sets and all of that, they definitely had a great impact on like me and my creative endeavors. Yeah.
So how about um because I know that I actually found out that you studied with Adolf Shapiro, and you've worked
Yes.
in like Moscow, New York Stage of Film. So,
Yeah.
how was your experience getting to be involved in those productions, and especially studying with a well-known name like Mr. Shapiro?
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. So I did the Moscow Art Theater, which is a renowned theater company in obviously Moscow. They used to have a program with Harvard, but they've since stopped. But it's so enlightening, and they approach it in such a different way than I think other people have. They really it was one of those things where we had like translators and they would come in, and I think that was the most fulfilled I've ever felt in a acting position. Just the conversations that you would have with them because they are such masters of their crafts. um the New York Stage and Film is amazing because they actually have a summer training program for young artists uh over over the summer called Powerhouse, which I did. It's at my alma mater, Vassar College, and basically you have a group of students who are staying there over the summer at Vassar, and they take classes, they put on shows, they do workshops, and in addition to that, they're working side by side with professional actors, professional filmmakers in development with New York Stage and Film. So, for example, like Hamilton did their first workshop with New York Stage and Film for while they were in development. So they were still developing Hamilton, and the students were able to go and see it while it was in its in development stage. And they have it for writers and directors and actors, and you can do those three different programs. And it's amazing because they put you in contact with professional actors. You can see people working behind the scenes. You can see shows that are like heading to Broadway, that are not quite there yet, but they're still developing. You can see their development process, and that's very amazing because you get to see the work as it's happening, which is cool. And then you get to see it hopefully when it gets to Broadway and see what's changed and things like that, and say that you've been in the room, which is awesome.
Hmm, nice. You know me, I just also like to go on like websites and research different like aspects or like different person like different facets of what actors have done. So
Yeah.
you've done movies like Ocean's 8, Mayor of Easttown on HBO, and just a bunch of other projects like On Camera and
Mhm.
theater and all that good jazz. So out of all the, I mean, not just specifically for VO, but it could be for live action and TV. Um, so with the experience that you've had working on camera, like
Mm.
you've done a lot of shows, productions, and being working with all these amazing people. Would you say that it's something that you definitely enjoyed, or like since you made the transition into VO,
Mm.
what do you personally prefer? Do you still prefer to do like the voiceover stuff, or
Mm.
if you still had offers to do like any on camera stuff, would you still do that like with theater?
Mm.
Because I know that COVID had definitely changed a lot of like it has changed so many things in the industry.
Yeah.
So if you were still doing like Broadway or just still doing on camera stuff, would you go back to that?
Yeah.
At least in the near future? Yeah.
Yeah. So I started off in theater, not musical theater, but more straight theater and classical theater. And then I moved into film and television, and then voiceover. So voiceover was the last part of my journey. Not last part, but part of it. I personally love the theater and I love on camera and film. So yeah, if the opportunity arose, absolutely, I would take it. And actually, like, I'm delving into the world of performance capture as well. And performance capture is amazing because it encompasses like everything. It encompasses theater, it encompasses film, it encompasses voiceover, which I find really exciting. So yeah, I'm of the mind that nothing is off the charts. Like I'm happy to do everything. And I think for me at least, if I stop learning or stop working in those areas, it's not as interesting to me. So I do want to continue. I love all aspects of the industry. I love being on screen. I love being on the stage, and I love being behind the scenes as well. So anything that I can really get my hands in, I'll gladly accept.
Yeah. So with all of that in mind, how did you actually stumble into VO?
So it was always I think in my subconscious because I grew up, I think like many people, on like anime and like Toonami when it was airing like after school programs. So I think and I loved those mediums. So I think I always knew about it. And then when I was in college, I had a friend who was working with Erica Schroeder, who does a lot of Pokemon. She's like Eevee, Wobbuffet. She was Maya Valentine in Yu-Gi-Oh! And is an amazing person. So my friend was coaching with her and had done her demo with her. And I had heard it and I was like, I've always wanted to do this. I was always interested in it. Can you introduce me? And she did. And so then I worked with Erica Schroeder for a while and became one of her students, and she introduced me to the world of voiceover and to studios here in New York. And then since then, have worked with various other studios here in New York and both here and in LA. Excuse me. So yeah, so I really just kind of started with her, and then it kind of grew from there. And I met like directors through her, and then um, just kept working on that industry.
Ooh. And would you say that the experience of doing theater and not camera, it helped you carried those skills? Would you say that it was a smooth transition when you started doing voice acting?
Yeah, well, because voice acting is acting still, so you need those
Yes.
acting chops, right? So theater and film, obviously, really, theater, I think, is where you get the best acting training because you are breaking down scenes, you learn how to approach scenes, and you learn how to break down scripts and stuff like that. So theater and film definitely help you for voiceover, but like all of these mediums have different things to them. Like you wouldn't do a theater performance for film just like you wouldn't do it for voiceover, and voiceover can be intimate and then it can be pretty like cartoony and stuff like that too, so it depends on the medium of what you're dealing with. But yeah, like acting is acting is acting, voice acting is the same thing. You just got to bring the same approaches to it.
Totally. Um, and you've definitely done a few voiceover projects, like you were on Pokemon, you were on um a lot of programs that some well-known projects like franchises that a lot of people are familiar with. And then you've also done some like newer stuff. Like you've worked with clients for Disney, Nickelodeon, NYUV Pose, like Gundam Seed, and then the
Mhm.
video games like Wasteland 3. I'm
Mhm.
kind of curious, out of all of the projects that you've done, I know I kind of asked this from time to time
No,
on
yeah.
here, but any particular favorites that kind of stand out? Like, what are some of the
Yeah.
standout roles or characters that you have done so far in your career? It could be
Yeah.
VO, it could be like anything, like on camera stuff, theater, just anything that just comes to mind
So
for
standout
you.
roles, Stella Lucier in Gundam Seed Destiny was one of my favorites. Because it was my first anime role, my first bigger anime role. Um, she is great in that she's very, she's a girl that's been indoctrinated to be a soldier. And so she has these keywords that kind of get her into that soldier mode, into that fighting mode. So she has these dual kind of personalities, which I loved being a part of. And being a part of Gundam in general was just like a dream come true because I had grown up watching Gundam and all of that, and I knew of it. So that was like amazing. In terms of on camera, like memorable moments, Ocean's 8 was like my first, like really first time on like a sound stage as an actor. And that was really cool because it was like a closed set, which meant nobody except for the crew and the actors were there. And it was like a very personal environment, and it was just me working with Sandra Bullock and the director, and it was just like eye-opening and one of those things where you're just like, oh yeah, this is why, this is one of the things that I love about it because like the soundstage was just so cool to be a part of. Yeah, there in terms of video games, Celine Crow was really fun for Wasteland 3. I love Seven Nights to Chang Chun. She's a warrior, but she's also like a romantic, and you get to play with a lot of sides there. And recently I did Edge and Ali, which is playing on Disney Plus in Malaysia right now and hopefully in the US soon. And I play a character named Moon. And she's just like a spunky little girl, and she like gets into like tons of mischief, which is super fun to play. Yeah. So many characters that I love, but I guess those are the standouts.
Well, yeah, and then with your roles and everything that you've done, um, and I guess that all kind of accumulated into like you starting to be. I mean, I know. I mean, I'm not sure if you started becoming a director when you made the transition into VO, because I know you've directed shows before, um, and you've done other miscellaneous projects. So do you enjoy the process of directing other actors from the years of like, being an actor yourself? Do you feel like directing others is a more fulfilling experience, or do you prefer like being on the acting side, like um, adapting those skills that you took as an actor and then applying it as a
Yeah.
director?
Yeah, I love both for different reasons. I love being on the actor side, but the directing side is so fulfilling. So I actually just started directing really the past year or two, mostly with NYAV Post, on some of their projects like Kingdom. And it's so interesting to be on the other side because you really get a sense of what goes on through production. You get a sense of it's kind of like self-fulfillment in a way too as an actor because you can be like, oh, I can hear that doesn't work right for this right now, whatever the actor's doing. Okay, what's why doesn't it work? And then working through that kind of like troubleshooting and then translating it for the actor to be like, oh, the subtext is wrong. Can you try it like this with this subtext, etc. And that's really fulfilling, and also guess just being a part of it from start to finish and seeing the progress of the show once it's done, and working with tons of different people who have different acting styles and different ways to approach things. It actually is like illuminating as a director and as an actor, because you can see, you know, what works and what doesn't, how people are approaching things differently, and then like you can kind of like use that in your acting techniques as well. So it's really like a great learning process as a director. Um, and it's also extremely technical. It's different in acting from acting in that like you're listening for what the actor's doing. You're also making sure I work with mostly ADR. So or like anime projects specifically right now. So you're looking to make sure that the sync works, that the mouth flaps are there, that like the engineer is able to move things and stuff like that. Or if the writing doesn't quite fit, you have to rewrite it to make it work. And it can be as like minuscule as like, oh, the labials don't look quite right. Like they're landing on a clenched teeth here, but our word is open mouth. So we need to change the script to match the mouth of the picture. So it's very technical in that sense, but it's also very rewarding in that sense too, because you really feel like you are submerged in the creative process of that project. And it's also, like I said, a great learning experience for actors. I highly recommend actors do some form of production work, because you really get a sense of what is behind the scenes, what's going on behind the scenes. There's so much that happens before the actor even gets into the booth. And it's like really helpful to just understand what's going on and who people are and what they're dealing with before you step in.
Right. Because working and communicating with actors is very important, especially if you have a theater background, because
Yeah.
you have a sense of what their styles are, what techniques they use, and since you guys speak, you know, since I know that those that have participated in that have a theatrical background, they get to tell and know, they get to what's the right word? It's okay, I know it's a term that somebody used when I was watching an interview, and my
Mm.
mind is just going blank.
No
But it's
worries.
like they speak each other's mind, so it's like they just
Yeah.
kind of communicate, and it just like
You definitely
clicks. Yeah,
yeah, you definitely
get a
build like
stronger bond.
a
Yeah,
yeah, you build like a dictionary. And I think
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
acting like
that's it.
really yeah, acting like helped me in the director's chair, because I knew what the actors were going through. So if something is not clicking or whatever, you build like a language between you two that you can share. Definitely, that you're like, oh, okay, I know how to approach it different way. And like I said, different actors have different techniques. So a lot of it is like catering to what they need as well, and the best way to translate that. Yeah, it's really cool, the relationship you build.
So when you were a kid, were there any shows that you watched that particularly stuck with you?
Oh gosh.
Or just any
So
media in general? Games, anything.
yeah. Well, games, I was a
Yeah.
huge gamer as a kid. And I still am a huge gamer. But like Zelda
Eh,
Ocarina of Time. Yeah. Zelda Ocarina of Time was like my first big video game, and that was like life changing. Shows, I was like I said, I grew up on the Toonami front, so I was like really into the old school kind of animes. So like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z. I remember when I was like really young, I think I auditioned for like for like some Marvel thing that was going up. It was an open casting call, but it was for like Poison Ivy, I want to say. And I was like 10 years old, and I was like, yeah, I want to audition because voice acting is so cool. I obviously did not get it. Let's see. So like yeah, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z. I was really into Full Metal Alchemist. That was like I think the show that really changed my perspective and in terms of anime. And I think that was like subconsciously, I don't think I knew it then, but subconsciously, I think that's where it kind of clicked that voiceovers could be a job. Um, Full Metal Alchemist, I think, was like the changing point. Yeah, like Gundam Wing, uh Inuyasha, all the Trigun, all those all those older ones that are now getting like reboots. Those are the ones that I was interested in.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you mentioned you let's see. I think you said when you were 10 you auditioned for Poison Ivy, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
I
Yeah.
yeah.
I can kind of see you doing it now.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, an audition for a voiceover. That's cool. I want to do that. And I was a 10-year-old trying to be like Poison Ivy, who was very like very sexy and mature and all that, and did not work.
I kind of have to wonder if if you tried auditioning for Ivy, somebody was walking in and they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, probably. I don't even, I think I was like, I don't even remember how I did it, but I distinctly remember I think holding a laptop to try and get the mic and just like
Oh
whispering the
man.
lines. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I was literally just whispering these lines. And it
I
was
mean,
not.
we all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. God, I can't even imagine looking back. I mean, I can still find my older stuff that I've auditioned for, and I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh. I know. Yeah, even like yeah, same. I have like
you know,
old auditions and I'm like, "Oh my God. No wonder. No
I mean,
wonder."
you know what? I mean, at least you can look back at them and you're like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, at
Thank
least
God I
you
got so
grew.
much better. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then there's some where I'm just like, how did I get this part?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, has that
Yeah.
happened? I know it happens to you from time to time.
Like all the time. Like literally all the time. Because like you got to think about it too. Like I was just talking to a friend about this. As a director, you really understand this, but you're competing with like 600 people, give or take. So,
Mhm.
like, anytime that you book a job, it's amazing because you beat out more or less 600 people. So, every time I'm like, how did I get this? But then I'm also like, thank you. Thank you so much for believing in me. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very humbling.
Yeah, and Full Metal Alchemist was the turning point for so many people. I remember
Yeah.
back when it was on Toonami, and I mean, I was a kid at the time, but I just didn't really know the impact that it had, on
Yeah.
anime conventions and just pop culture in
Yeah.
general. It was really huge at the
I
time, and now,
remember,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, I think it was Cowboy Bebop or
Yeah.
DBZ, Sailor Moon that just really started and of course Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! That just kind of started
Yeah.
this whole anime boom of
Yeah.
it started in the late 90s, but FMA was kind of one of those shows from the 2000s where it's you hear the name, you just cannot escape it.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
think it's My Hero Academia, then some
Yeah.
recent anime that just came out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you were saying?
No, I remember like so when Full Alchemist came out, that's when I started. I used to go to conventions as a kid and I would go to like the voiceover panels and stuff.
Oh, those are a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like listen to like Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham and like all of that and like yeah, Caitlin Glass, and it was just like amazing to see because that was like the first time that I realized that there were actors behind it. And like Full Alchemist, I think is such a special show because I think that was like the first show that I understood like the plot completely, and like the plot is just beautifully done. The political drama, the like espionage, all of it. They have such interesting characters. It's great. Yeah, I remember I went to a convention when you were talking about like how big it was, and I remember
So
there
many
was, I guess, like
cosplays.
so many cosplays and like a photo call, I guess, for like Full Metal Alchemist, and like at the time that it was designated, they had a photo call, and there were like literally hundreds of people dressed up
Thank you.
and like accumulating in this one spot, and I was like, oh my God, that's so
Wow,
many.
this is so big. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let me see. Yeah, we could just talk about shows all day, but
I know.
yeah, I'm just just geeking out about the stuff that we would watch as children. And then it just kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nice. It's really important to have those passions, and then it just bleeds into your work. Like if it
Yeah.
is a part of your personality, that's,
Yeah.
I
And I
mean,
think now it's even more so. Like we as kids when we grew up, it was kind of like weird to go to these things, at least for me. But now it's just like mainstream and it's like kind of
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
How about, how about movies? Any ones that stood out to you?
Oh my gosh, movies. So my parents were the kind of parents because they were in the film industry who would take me to movies all the time and like what let me watch like The Exorcist when I was like 9 years old and I'm still scarred by it. Um Movies that stood out. I mean, I love older movies, so like Some Like It Hot, um, which is hilarious. Goodfellas, I like The Godfather,
Oh
Lord of
yeah,
the
good taste.
Rings. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings trilogy,
Hobbit?
extended. Thank you. Hobbit, it was okay.
Fair.
It didn't have the same impact, I guess, as Lord of the Rings for me. Let me think. Other movies. So many. I can't even like romantic ones like Casablanca, Roman Holiday, uh Almost Famous is a big one in our family. Um there's just so many. I yeah. I have like a whole I like the whole Criterion collection, I guess, and everything that's come out in between.
Yeah. So, fun facts. You have a black belt in Taekwondo,
Yes.
and you're very fluent in Spanish and Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm half Chinese, half Spanish. So I learned Spanish when I was in school and continued. And then Japanese, because of everything, I was just always interested in the culture itself. So I started taking Japanese in high school and then through college and then continue even now. Um, and then, yeah, I'm a second degree black belt in Taekwondo. I started when I was in kindergarten and continue practicing since then. And I love it. It's great.
Right on, right on. Um, yeah. Uh, Let me see. Are there any more questions I have? I'm no, I think I'm pretty sure that's about it. You
Okay.
can just like share anything that you're going to be working on, what we can expect to see for the future without breaking, the NDAs, of course. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm trying to think of what I can say. So yeah, one of the movies I co-directed, not sorry, I was an assistant director on that. Is New Gods, Young Jian. That's coming out January 20th in theaters. It's through G Kids, so check it out. Let's see. I think that's really the only thing I can say right now. Projects are being recorded. But you are free to follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Those are the best ways to keep up with what I'm up to.
yeah, plugging them socials.
Yeah, gotta plug them.
Yeah. So, any last words that you want to say to
No,
close out this nice little
thank you so
chat?
much. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate taking the time, and it's so fun chatting with you.
Yeah, of course. Any last piece of advice that you have before,
Acting is acting is acting. Take classes. You're never too old to learn. Um, Never rest on your laurels. And yeah, keep going. It's hard, but you can do it.
yeah, what she said. Um, yeah, I'm not really good at outros, so I'll see you guys later and take care. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon, day, night, whichever time zone you're in. And yeah, stay tuned next time on Station Square. Ciao.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.